This conference will now be recorded.
Yeah, we got the military this time.
It looks good.
It looks good. Does Linda approve? That's the only thing that really matters.
Yeah.
She did it. She did it.
Did she really?
Yeah.
Oh,
I
nice.
told her, Linda, I said, give me a. Okay.
All right.
It's been a long time.
Sit up straight.
I had a couple people ask me, and big
Oh,
mistake. Not a thing I will ever go into.
for them.
Both.
You gotta practice.
No, if it's a straight buzz, I can do that.
Yeah.
You know, the lines and.
All I ask is don't use the dog clippers.
Dog probably asked the same thing.
The dog said the same thing. Don't use Danny's clipper. Yeah, you didn't have your packet laying here like usually.
Normally I do. I left it sitting on the thing and I forgot, so I'm not gonna grab it. So hopefully you guys don't
Yeah, go
pull too. No, I'll be all right. I'll make good notes. Hopefully.
Now you back at school?
So I never stop.
Oh,
So
that's
I don't
right.
get breaks. The only break I get is around.
Yeah, it's filling
Oh
up.
yeah.
But as soon as the class ends, I start.
There's people without suits.
But I started dissertation
School just
Yes.
started, so this.
hopefully within.
Yep, I think there's
Yeah, so
I think
just
they get
started,
extra
the
credit.
classes for it, so right
I think I'm in the city council meeting for taking
now,
government.
it takes like 12
So
weeks.
knock it out early in the year, right? Get it over with.
These 12 weeks will be research.
I think that's what Tim was telling me. Civics teachers or the government teachers giving an extra credit, 10 extra credit points or something. So
I'm never going back.
We haven't heard anything from the
art.
art people.
I emailed him about 3 weeks ago, and he said
You'll know what having free time is
there
like.
is a full bunch of rush.
Yeah, I've been in college for 10 years. I'm not going to know. Work
Open
full time.
in
How are you?
a couple weeks. We should be done. We need to be done for the art show. That's the big thing.
Hopefully within the next year. But I've been hoping that for the. We'll see. Yeah. But then I can put.
Oh, I don't know if he's on his way or if he's already there.
Yeah.
Yeah, good for
And I
him.
keep telling my family, I'm like, I just say it one time, and they're like, nope. I'm just gonna hear it one time. It's just that. After that, I don't want to hear it again.
Take the. When do you get a chance to go to Ireland and see K-State play football?
Yeah.
KU plays their first game tomorrow night.
That's what I heard.
All right. It is 7 o'clock. We will call the August 21st DeSoto City Council meeting to order. Let's start with roll call, please.
Lane.
Here.
Hannah Michael. Daniels.
Here.
Patterson.
Here.
McMurray.
Here.
And Walker, it appears Councilmember Hannah Michael is absent.
Okay. I would invite you all to please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, our first item tonight is our consent agenda. Tonight on the consent agenda, we have item A, approved minutes from the August 7th City Council meeting. Item B, approved pay ordinance number 1003. Item C, approved donation request from the DeSoto Food Pantry. Item D, approved bids for the Aquatic Center and Miller Park roof replacement project. Item E, approved quote from Environmental Process Systems to replace sewer lift station pump. Item F, approve Resolution 2072 allowing for consumption of alcohol in the downtown district for Item G, approve First Amendment to Development Agreement with Flint Meadows East LLC. And item H, accept easements and rights-of-way for Flint Meadows East Phase 1. Is there any item anyone would wish to remove from the consent agenda for further? Okay. Hearing none, can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion, we approve consent agenda.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Brandon, I would note that I would vote on item H.
Yep.
Roll call, please.
Lane,
Yes.
Daniels,
Yes.
Patterson,
Yes.
McMoran,
Yes.
Mayor Walker.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right. Item 2 is call to public. Members of the public are welcome to use this time to comment about any matter relating to city business. The comments that are discussed under call to public may or may not be acted on by the council during this. There is a 4-minute time limit. Does anyone wish to address the council under call to? Please come to the podium, state your name and address.
My name is Martin Boyd, and my address is South 28th Street, Kansas City, Kansas. And I do not understand the proceedings that's happening for this kind of meeting. I was wondering if this is an appropriate time to address the consideration for the abatements that are going to be given for the data center.
That'll be a public hearing item under that agenda item under item 4A. So we'll take comments for that item then.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Sure. All right, I'm not seeing any other commenters, so we will move on in our item 3 is old business. We do not have any, so we'll go on to item 4A. Consider resolution of intent to issue industrial revenue bonds and approve development agreement with Mount Sunflower Property.
Yes, Mayor, with your permission, I'd like to give a brief introduction of the actions that are on the agenda for tonight, brief description of the development agreement and the processes there, and then maybe have a few minutes for the applicant to give a presentation just about the overall project. You'll see on the agenda there are actually 3 items under item 4A. The first is a public hearing to hear public input on the issuance of IRBs for the project. The second one is a development agreement, which really lays out the specifics of the overall scale and nature of the project, the commitments from the developer, the commitments from the city. And then the last one is a resolution of intent, future industrial, future phases of the project. So with that, the bulk of the detail to be considered tonight really is contained in the development agreement document, and that's been provided for you in the packet. It's multifaceted development agreement with several exhibits that explain different facets of the agreement, and we'd be happy to stop and answer any questions, provide any clarification the council might have along the way. I'm not going to belabor every detail of that agreement, but I do want to outline for the council and for the general public essentially what the agreement entails. So the project in question is a multi-phase data center project happen on land that's commonly known as the Flint Commerce Center. This land is about 290 acres, roughly at the northwest corner of Edgerton Road and 3rd Street. There is an existing 100 million square foot building on the Flint Commerce Center. The data center would take essentially the remaining property of that. The proposal currently is for a 4-phase project. Each phase of building would be about 285,000 square feet. Main buildings and some ancillary buildings for a total square footage of about 1.14. The total initial investment for all of all the phases of the data center is estimated at about $3.1 billion. And there will be a continued investment over time for retooling of the interior components, largely the server racks, the computer chips that run the data center over time. And that'll be a significant investment. The exact scale and timing of that reinvestment as it goes along is difficult to predict at this time, but at the applicant's request, we have envisioned a total maximum amount of overall investment, including the initial construction, the initial tooling, and the retooling over this 10 to 15-year period of a maximum of $50 billion. So very important point of clarification for the council. I know the council understands this, but for the public, we are not considering $50 billion of incentives for this project. This is potentially a $50 billion investment in our community, and we are considering much smaller specific incentives to incentivize that investment over time. Very important point of clarification. Several news outlets have gotten that wrong, and I really wish there wasn't any confusion about that, but I know that there is. So that's the overall project. The construction timeline, the applicant intends to begin construction in 2026 with full build out maybe taking 7 to 9 years. 7 to 9 may be done by 2035, not 79 years. That is. In terms of the terms of the development agreement, there is a minimum of investment that essentially equates to the initial construction of phase 1 improvement. In the agreement, that's identified as $700 million to build the initial data center building, to tool the initial data center. And that investment is required to get the benefits of the that's in front of you. Those benefits do include a reduction in the franchise fee rate of 5%. So in the city of DeSoto, like many other cities, when you buy electric power, you pay a franchise fee to the local government. DeSoto's rate is 5% of whatever that. This agreement allows a reduction of 25% of that rate. Still, we do estimate franchise fees directly to the city to equate to about $5.5 million annually once the data center is fully constructed and all phases are in operation. By way of example, the city will collect only about $2.4 million in property tax revenue in 2025. So that gives you an idea of the scale, the magnitude of the impact just for city revenues that are possible. With each phase, so let's suppose phase 1 is the only one that gets done, and that's where the project ends because that's all the developers really committing to do. Still, we estimate that franchise revenue at $1.5 million once it's up and operational. That's based on power usage. So an important factor there. Another important factor, I think, as everybody understands data centers, and you don't have to research them very long to understand that they are a big user of power and they are a big user of water. This one's no exception. They'll need a significant amount of water treated water delivered to them, and they're going to have a significant amount of wastewater to be treated afterward. That will require significant capital improvements on behalf of the city in close coordination with Rural Water District Number 7. The property is within the service territory of Rural Water 7. We have enacted a memorandum of understanding with Rural Water 7 that we're going to cooperate to provide service to the property, and those details are to be worked out with subsequent agreements to this, but this does lay the groundwork for substantial improvements to the city's diversion works down by the Kansas River. There will be additional wells need to be drilled. We'll have raw water mains to construct from the river up to the treatment plant. We'll need to expand the capacity at the treatment plant. We'll need significant treated water distribution mains along 103rd Street, along 95th Street, potentially along Edgerton Road to serve the property, and elevated water storage, additional elevated water storage to handle the demand. In addition, we'll need a new industrial wastewater treatment facility to serve this property. all of those costs associated with the implementation of those public improvements will be borne directly by the developer. No city funding will be used to implement. And when done, they'll provide additional resiliency, additional redundancy, and reliability to the city system. We will have further redundancy in well capacity, further redundancy in raw water treatment capacity, and all the things that we need to deliver water service. We'll also be treating volumes of water that will allow economies of scale that would tend to put downward pressure on water rates. Now, haven't done analysis on that yet, but the expectation is that rather than the worry that this might increase your water bill, I think the opposite is true. Nothing obviously in the development agreement stipulates that, but I would say that the developer has not negotiated any type of reduction in the water commodity charge or wastewater commodity charge. So there are no breaks given in the water fee. They will pay the going rate for water and sewer. So that's an important point to make as well. The last point to make is with the issuance of the industrial revenue bonds does allow for a property tax exemption on the property. The council will remember in 2002 we negotiated a similar property tax abatement concept for the Flint Commerce Center. And at the time, Flint Commerce Center was to have about 8 million square feet of warehouse distribution and possibly light industrial development on it, with it bringing you know, a significant amount of traffic and jobs, but also some impacts. At that time, we negotiated a payment in lieu of taxes. So we abated the property tax, but the developer was going to have to pay us an amount about equal to 23 cents per square foot of building. We've also negotiated a similar payment in lieu of taxes with the data center project, and that amount starts at 40.5 cents per square foot. So the rate is higher. And also important to note that the school district's capital mill levy, which now sits at about 8 mills, is protected from any abatement. So that'll have to be paid to the school district day one and throughout the term. IRBs in Kansas, this property tax abatement is for 10 years, and the concept is to phase that as the development occurs. So phase one, IRBs will be issued, the property tax incentive will start when it's completed. That'll start a 10-year clock on phase one. If phase two takes place a year later, that clock won't start for a year later. And so there'll be different phasing for each phase. So in total, the property tax incentive might last 15 years, just depending on how long it takes the overall project to build out. That essentially is my summary. There's obviously much more detail that I did not go into. I think Patrick will agree in our dealings and negotiations with the developer. We are strongly in support of this action. We think it will bring not only transformational investment in our community, but transformational revenues to our city. It lowers the neighborhood impacts associated with the development of the remaining Flint Commerce Center, and the infrastructure improvements will set us up to be a much more reliant service provider for water and sewer. So with that, I would like to stand for comments, and Mayor, with your permission, I would maybe invite the applicant to come and give a brief presentation.
Yeah, please do. Come on up.
Mike, if I can just add one thing, as just with the industrial revenue bonds, you know, that is the vehicle by which the city can tax abatement and sales tax exemption, but it's not the city's money. The city is not, the city's finances or revenue is not in play here. Rather, the industrial revenue bonds is just a vehicle that cities in Kansas and counties can issue those, and it does serve as a vehicle for tax abatement and sales tax. So, as Mike said, all of the money associated with the project is being paid by the developer, not the city.
Okay.
Thanks.
Important point. Please come on up.
Lower this a little bit. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
All right. I figured I'd just start us off with a few words, and then I'm going to pass it over to the project team to get into the development agreement and project details a little bit. But I just want to say good evening, Mayor and City Council members. My name is Lauren Harvey, and I represent Beal Infrastructure. Thank you for this opportunity to present Project Pilot for your consideration this evening. Beal Infrastructure develops data centers and critical infrastructure nationwide. We're long-term partners who work closely with local communities to create facilities that support our digital economy while generating lasting economic benefits. Project Pilot represents a multi-billion-dollar investment in DeSoto, with continued maintenance and reinvestment through the project's lifecycle. This facility will support the technology services that power banking, healthcare, education, and emergency systems. Data centers are now designated as critical infrastructure and essential for national security. We've carefully selected this site for its compatibility with existing higher volume in manufacturing and industrial uses in the area and away from residential communities. Data centers are low-impact facilities with minimal traffic generation and limited demand on municipal services, making them ideal neighbors for DeSoto's existing businesses. This site is strategically located near resources needed to support our operations, and Beal will privately fund bringing those resources to the site. The project will create long-term local construction jobs, technician and operations positions, and generate substantial revenue for DeSoto schools and city services. It positions DeSoto as a forward-thinking community supporting America's infrastructure and digital economy needs. Today's application represents responsible development on appropriately zoned land. We're committed to ongoing community engagement in advance of construction and workforce development initiatives leading into the operations. Beal is excited to be a part of this community and contributing positively to DeSoto's forward thinking and future growth. Thank you for your time and consideration, and I will turn it over to the Pocinelli team to provide more details.
You'll just have to scroll, I believe. That's just a PDF. Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. Cord Maxwell, Polsinelli Law Firm. Pleasure to be here tonight to represent the Beal team and the Project Pilot team. As you saw, Lauren Harvey's with us. We also have John Michael Handley, Development Manager that is local here in Kansas City that has been hired by the Beal team. And I also have co-counsel with me, Scott Ziantz from the Voorhees firm. So what a big night. We've worked on this for a long time, and we're really excited to dive in a little more to the details. Mike did an incredible job of sort of outlining this year of work that it's taken for us to get here. But if it's okay with the council, I'm going to do a short PowerPoint to maybe provide a little bit more dive on some of those issues and give a little bit of information to the public. It's going to have a broad project overview, a development agreement summary, and some of the other project impacts. First, we are on the Flint Commerce site, as has been said. It is about the 290 acres that is left of the Flint Commerce site, the part outside of the 1 million square foot industrial building. This is roughly at the northwest corner of 103rd and Edgerton. And as Lauren said, it is zoned appropriately. It is zoned M1, and data centers are a permitted use in M1 zoning. The pieces that we need to work through with the council is the development agreement that Mike went through, and then ultimately site planning through that process. We're using the utilities of Evergy, Johnson County, Rural Water 7 in the city of DeSoto. And the goal of all of this, with approval tonight, is we would start construction in 2026 and finish the first phase in 2027 and be online. So what is a data center? Lots of people have questions on them, want to understand them. And the simplest way we know to talk about them is it is an industrial building, but what it houses, what it warehouses is computers. It's inside of it. It is on the outside, it looks very much like an industrial building. On the inside, just racks and racks of computers and servers. On that outside, as I said, it very much has the look of an industrial building. It will fit well in the context of the Flint Commerce Center and of the Panasonic facility out there. And it ultimately has less impacts. Here is a representative site plan. This is not final engineering. This is not final architecture, but it's just a little bit to give scope and scale to the community of what could it look like and what could we have. We will have 2 phases to the project. The first phase is in the southwest corner. There'll be a substation there, and then we'll end up having 2 of the buildings that will go on the south side. And then as we move into phase 2, we'll have 2 buildings up on the north side of the property. We still very much have adequate buffers between ourselves and Edgerton Road over there and the neighbors. I think we looked at our preliminary planning. These are nearly 200-foot buffers that you will see on that side of Edgerton Road. We think it's an ideal site, sort of tucked in and up against the highway. We're going to have primary access off 103rd and Edgerton in emergency. We have easy access to K10. We've got great electrical infrastructure in and around the area. And then, as Mike described, with the improvements the city will make out there that we are funding, we have the ability to access water and wastewater that will be able to drive the development. Mike did a great job about talking through what we're seeing in the development agreement, but it's really got a couple of key components to it that we negotiated with your staff in good faith on and think we came to a really good project. It's first, the IRB, having the ability to have a abatement with a specific pilot. And Mike hit it right, that we are doubling the level of the pilot. We had a phased pilot in the Flint agreement that was 23 cents for non-manufacturing uses, and manufacturing uses it was 18 cents, and now we've jumped that up and will be over 40 cents in this. So we will have a 10-year tax abatement, but that pilot will end up paying more. We'll then have a sales tax exemption on construction materials and the equipment that's included. Importantly, that does not include an exemption on sales tax on the energy. Another component of this is that we will pay sales tax, state, local, county, DeSoto. We will pay sales tax on all of the energy that flows through this building. So beyond the franchise fees that Mike indicated, there will also be revenues coming off of sales taxes from the energy, something you would not see usually in a traditional industrial project or in a much, much lower scale. So I think that's one other positive benefit. And to the point, we did ask and requested for $50 billion to be a maximum out there of the IRBs. I do not believe we will ever hit that number. In the interim, since we began working on this, the legislature in its last session passed Senate Bill 98. And what Senate Bill 98 allowed is that there is a exemption if you meet the qualifications under Senate Bill 98 for both the construction sales tax of the building and of the server refreshes. And that law is very new. It hasn't been fully regulated, codified. No one's gone through it. But if that all works according to plan, we will be able to use that for the sales tax exemption on our servers. And in so doing, we will likely bring down over the life of this, those numbers of that 50 billion significantly. So that's an interesting point I just wanted all to know. Mike went through the franchise fees. There is a cap at $5.5 million. And that will have 1.5% annual increases. And then water and wastewater, we will be funding. There will need to be improvements to serve this project, and we will work collectively with the city on all of those. But the most important thing of that is it will be both the city and the developer that will look at all of those designs, and we will absolutely pay for all of that. There will be no taxpayer funding that will go into that infrastructure that we need to serve our project. Development is supposed to pay for development, and that is no more true in the world than in these data center deals, that we need to make sure we are footing that bill so it does not go on the regular ratepayer or the taxpayer out there. I would note one small component to that, though, is we're going to end up spending substantial money upgrading that. If someone that's next to us ends up needing to connect to that infrastructure in some form or fashion, given that we fronted all that cost, there is a mechanism so that folks would pay their fair share. And when I say folks, I mean only commercial and industrial users, not residential users out there. We did a good job of laying this out, but what is an IRB? I say this, and I say this as a lawyer, but it really is, and Patrick did a great job. This is not a financing tool from the city. Even though it's called bonds, it's not a financing tool from the city. It is simply the way under Kansas statute that we provide tax abatement. It has been around for decades upon decades upon decades. It is the tool that we use. There is no city credit involved. There is no city money involved. This is all our capital that we will spend on this. The only thing that it provides is that tax abatement that we then pay a pilot on, and it pays that sales tax exemption on the construction materials out there. What are the benefits to a data center? We did a nice job, but it ends up having good, solid paying jobs. We project there will be over 100 jobs in this facility, and we think that's on the low end, that there should be over 100 jobs that end up happening here from the company itself and its vendors and contractors that will be there. That's just on the long-term operation. All of those jobs, those are six-figure jobs, and many of those jobs do not require four-year degrees. A lot of those jobs can be achieved with associate degrees and some with technical certificates that can be achieved even in 6 months. So these are very good jobs that are entries into middle-class lifestyle. They fit well in the whole Kansas City region, and they fit well in DeSoto. We will be a significant tax revenue generator for the city, the county, the state, and others as we sit here. We will pay for all of our infrastructure upgrades, will provide diversification, and we also help in the long term of business attraction. As you end up having this high-tech economy, it starts to create additional components. We walked through the tax revenues, happy to do that in further detail. Very likely that our end users, what we've seen all across the country is end users end up partnering with school districts. They end up investing in STEM education, and on that education point, even in our pilot, we never capture that capital outlay mills, those 8 capital outlay mills. So there will be significant revenue running out to the school district through all of this. We create long-term employment, as I said, specifically for the project, but we also create a lot of construction jobs. And those construction jobs aren't just temporary. It's not just one building. It's happening building after building as you go. And when you finish, you got to come back and you got to refresh again. And so there's these substantial cycles of capital investment that will be happening in this community, providing tradesmen and highly skilled labor work for a long period of time. It is one of the great benefits of these projects. And we end up, as I said, and many times in this, paying for and funding all of the infrastructure that we need happens on the back of this project. With that, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, we're incredibly excited about this project. We would be happy to answer any of the questions that the council would have, that the public would bring up through the open public hearing. Anything you'd like to bring our team back for, we're here to answer these questions. This project is critical. We think it fits great at this site, and we think we're going to be an unbelievable community partner to DeSoto over the very long term.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Before I open the public hearing, any questions for Mike or for the developer?
I've got some, but I'd like to hold them to that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. All right. With that, I'm going to officially open the public hearing. I would ask that you come to the podium, state your name and address. There'll be a 3-minute time limit. Brandon, do you have a timer?
I can certainly start one.
Okay.
Give me 1 second. By the time Mike gets the clicker, I'll be ready to go.
Sorry, Mike. Sorry.
Oh, yeah. And I'm going to gavel us in, and we'll officially start the public hearing. So just come to the podium, state your name and address, and then Your time will start.
My name is Martin Boyda. My address is 2634 South 28th Street, Kansas City, Kansas. I'd like to thank the council for your time and the representatives for the developers for the information. It was very insightful. They did quell some of my concerns, but a few of the things that I do have a concern about is one, do we have the infrastructure for the electricity to support the data center? Just something that we haven't really I haven't found any information on. Secondly, one of my biggest concerns is the impact environmentally. Myself, I'm a resident of Wyandotte County, but I came here tonight to speak because I am a heavy user of the river recreationally, and I have concerns about the water usage. We hear about the millions of gallons a day that these data centers use, and that brings concern to me, and it would be nice to get some information about whether we have the capacity ecologically to support, a situation like this. Are we going to take it from the river and, degrade the ecological standards of the river? Are we going to take it from the ground? Are people's, home wells on their private property going to go dry because the aquifer goes too low? Just all kinds of concerns related to water usage. I know that some of these data centers will use evaporative cooling, and that's more wasteful. Is this a closed loop cooling system? Is it an evaporative cooling system? Just things on that nature. I mean, like I said, a lot of good information. I don't doubt that these people want to be a good steward of the community, and it sounds like they're trying to be, but my concern mainly at this point is water and electricity. Thank you.
All right, thank you for your comment.
Members of the council, thank you for taking my comment. I'm Terry Wilkie, my address 3221 Yellowstone Drive, Lawrence, Kansas. So with respect to a data center, they use a lot of electricity. The gentleman's got a very good question about where are we going to get all this electricity. They use a lot of water. That has fairly been answered. There are questions there about running wells dry. The river is not as mighty as it was at one time around here. And then an increase in utilities across the United States typically result in an increase in ratepayers. We have to pay. So that would result in a situation where the city is giving money to a company that's going to result in the ratepayers paying for their increased electricity and water demand. There are alternatives to that. As you continue negotiating, they can use the rainwater collection system. I don't kid myself, that would cool their servers, but it would help. There is cloud storage. There are alternatives to using water for cooling. There are other materials. There's foam and membranes, and that can be discussed with the company. Finally, I'm glad to hear that there will be jobs made available. I'd like to ask the city of DeSoto to ask the company to provide training for people, a training system so that people can access these jobs, so that we avoid a situation where we're simply trucking people in from a distance to do these jobs, where we really create jobs for the community. And I thank you very much.
Thank you for your comment.
Marie Caldwell, 8412 Corliss Road and 30900 West 83rd Street. They've brought up some of my concerns that I were going to bring up. The other thing is I want to talk about the noise pollution. What was it that you said the barrier was going to be? 200. Typically it's 600 is where you can hear the noise. And so it depends too on some of the cooling systems they have. But this, if you've been following the build out of the data center up north, this is what you're hearing people complain about. You're hearing the complaints about the environmental effects. You're hearing the complaints about noise. The other thing is greenhouse gas emissions. These generators use fossil fuels typically. And so, again, the pollution that is coming out of those. So that's kind of, because it's kind of short for me because everybody else kind of brought up my same concerns. Thanks.
Thank you.
Evening, Council. Zach Bradley, 8341 Laramie, here in DeSoto. I appreciated the presentation and all the good information that was provided. I know that there were some concerns from some folks. I think the environmental, the water usage was interesting about the river usage. I know that the discharge from the proposed data center is pretty clean to begin with, perhaps so clean that it can't even be treated by a regular water treatment plant without the addition of additional bacteria due to its dilutant factor. As far as the health effects, the noise pollution I think is a valid concern, although there don't seem to be many residences. There's a few to be sure, but within that local area around it, there doesn't seem to be much, so I'm fairly okay with that. As to the no risk to the city, I think that's the most important part that was brought up, is that we won't be out money as taxpayers if this doesn't work out for some reason. I did notice in the Columbia Capitol data that they attached in the agenda, that there was just in property taxes an additional $10 million to the city and $48 million to USD 232 over the 17 years. I know that no one in here could speak for the school board, but it would sure be nice if they got an extra $48 million if they would lower their mill rate a bit, and maybe that would help. Additionally, I know that in there, Columbia outlaid 155 permanent jobs, which is fine, not a huge amount of jobs, I don't think, but I think those franchise fees that you mentioned, as well as the property taxes over the life of the center, seem to be a fairly good investment for the city. And I know that there might be other uses that would be better, but it seems like it'd be better to have a bird in your hand than two somewhere off in the bush that you might have glimpsed at one point. And that's pretty much all I have. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else before I close the public hearing?
Okay. My name is Pam Houston, 1807 North 1150 Road, Lawrence. I knew nothing about data centers until about 3 weeks ago when friends from where I grew up in northern Indiana started talking about data centers in that area. I grew up on a dairy farm in a small town of about 3,000, and they put in a data center near there. And all I've heard from my friends is how it's destroying so many things. The water table, the electricity, the noise, and I think you all have done, seems like you all have done a good job of working with the company and for the company to provide you with information. But these data centers are popping up everywhere. And I'm worried that tomorrow I'm going to see one in my backyard, but that's not my concern right now. My concern is that as some of the folks have made the comments to also look at the noise pollution, but the usage of water. I read that the amount of water used can be the equivalent of a small town. How small? Is DeSoto going to be all of a sudden using twice as much water daily? This would be daily they use it. So continue to ask questions of the developers. And I love the comment about the training for the employees. I think using local employees and training them for this work, it's not a lot of it, employment, but it certainly could help a lot of people. But please be careful, because I'm hearing really horror stories from back home. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Hello, my name is Lisa Alfano, 8452 Timber Ridge Drive, DeSoto, Kansas. I got some concerns with the noise, the water. Where's the new water tower going to go? Is there going to be a new treatment facility? Where's that going to go? And not to even mention the traffic that we already have a huge problem with here. It's huge. I don't even want to leave my house before 9 a.m. And then 4 o'clock comes, you can't get anywhere. So what's that going to do to us? So those are my, and I honestly think they're pretty big concerns for us, not to mention the noise, really everything that everybody has brought up today. So thank you for the information, but it doesn't make me feel better about it.
All right, anyone else before I close the public hearing? All right, seeing none, I'm going to officially close the public hearing, and we'll take a discussion here amongst the council. So our first step would be to discuss and ask questions of the developer or staff. If you have them, anyone have anything they'd like to start with?
I can start, Mayor.
Sure.
I was just wondering, do the tax abatements come with some kind of KPIs, like if they're not met, like by a certain time frame? Is there any, reduced or revoking of those?
Not with this one. We've done that on some projects where we will, require that wages be at a certain level or employment numbers. But on this one, given that the real driver of this is not employee headcount, so no, we don't have any clawbacks that if they don't hire a certain number of employees that they would lose their tax abatement. But I would add that given the law on tax abatements, for each time that the developer comes to the council for a 10-year tax abatement, we'll have to hold a public hearing, and you will take a new vote on whether to authorize that tax abatement. The resolution you're passing indicates that it's the intent of the city to do that, but technically you'll have to take that action each 10-year tax abatement.
Anyone else have I have a couple.
Is that all you
done?
So a couple things following up on what you said. It's going to be kind of like Merck, where we said there's an intent, but they come back routinely and the council has to pass it each time. So it's not something that we haven't done before in that sense. While there's not a clawback, there is the performance that they have to hit that certain level for the pilot to actually be, or development agreement to be in place.
The minimum investment.
Yeah. I do have a question for Corb, since he's the legal. You mentioned that, so with the IRBs, there's the actual bond, which is covered entirely by the private entity, no spread on the city. There's the tax abatement on the property, and then there's the sales tax exemption.
Yes.
Kansas just passed the data center bill earlier this year. So you were saying there's a possibility that the IRB would not be including the sales tax exemption because that would be potentially under the state law.
Yep.
The question I have, so we're seeing a reduction of franchise fees, but the actual power and energy fees you're paying to Evergy, would that be the standard rate fees or discounted?
Yeah, it's a great question,
And the reason I'm asking is Senate Bill 98, that is a requirement in the bill that it be standard rates, not discounted rates. And then the reduced franchise fee, would that be considered a discounted rate or not?
yeah, it's a great question, Councilman, and thank you. That was something I should have put in my case in chief, as there's always questions about energy out there. At a high level, and then I'll come very specifically to your question on the energy point, all of the talk that we had about water and wastewater, all of those same points apply on the energy side. The way it works in our interactions with Evergy is all of the infrastructure that it takes to bring the power to this site, we pay for all of that. So the public, the ratepayer, is not charged for the infrastructure out there. That is all 100% covered by us. So we have to build all of that infrastructure. We have to pay for all of that infrastructure. And none of that is built into Evergy's system that rates are based on. Then right now, there is a new rate case going on that is about having a large load tariff. And that large load tariff, that name, is really about high energy users, and those high energy users are data centers. And very specifically, the policy of Evergy in that case that they are putting forward is that it will not be an incentive rate, a discount rate out there. It will not be a low rate. It will actually be a higher rate to account for our large loads. And so the policy and the thought of the state of Kansas and of Evergy and the KCC and everybody that's working on this issue right now is what they're telling us in the data center industry is you pay for all of the infrastructure and then you pay a real rate, not a discount rate, so that this is not a burden that falls down on the regular ratepayer and that the regular ratepayer sees their energy rates go up. We've got to pay our own way through that. And so to answer your question, we should not have an impact on rates. And then to Senate Bill 98, we do not think that the discount on the franchise fee ends up taking us out of that law. But that is the reason we negotiated with the council and with the city that we have the ability to use IRBs should we need them, because that is an absolutely critical function, is not paying sales tax on those servers. It's why the state passed the law. It's why we negotiated for that large IRB number, that we had that protection so that we could attract the hyperscaler to come and use this facility. So we're excited about it, but we think we've built in enough protections here that the city is protected, as is the ratepayer out there.
So another way to say that, the state is wanting to see this type of investment through sales tax exemptions, but in the event that there is something that doesn't technically work out with the state level, the sales tax exemption under the IRB would be the fallback?
Yes, as always, you say it cleaner and clearer than I do, Councilman. Well done.
I think that's all the questions. I do have a couple comments there, but.
Okay.
I'll let others
Mayor, would you
ask
like
their
me to
questions.
touch a couple of, there were some questions about water, some questions
So,
about
yeah, that's
noise,
kind of what I
some
had.
traffic. Would you like me to just extemporate on a couple of those, and then I can, of course, answer any other questions?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Want to go ahead and do that now?
So water, there was a lot of questions brought up regarding water. First, this is not just a Cord Maxwell opinion. It's not even just a city staff opinion out there. We have professional engineers that are hired on our side of the table, and you have professional engineers that are hired on your side of the table. And all of us are studying where we're going to get the water, where the route to bring the water is, the infrastructure that will be around behind it, and there are checks and balances both from the municipal level and our level. We believe there can be a path to adequate fresh water in this area. It's going to have to be treated. There's going to have to be substantial infrastructure built, but all of us have looked at it and studied it. About the exact cooling systems, we'll continue to work on exactly what type it will be, evaporative, closed loop, all of those, as the design continues to move forward and we work through these processes. What I can say to all of the environmental concerns out there is that these facilities only continue to get more and more efficient, and it is absolutely at the top of the mind of the tenants and Beal to make sure you are as environmentally responsible as possible in bringing down the water use. There's also some really great stats out there across the country that we've seen in the data center industry about how much water data centers use as a whole. I think in like 2023, it might have been about 66 million gallons per day, which sounds like an amazing amount, but that's about 6% of what's used on golf courses across the United States. So while we use a substantial amount of water, we try to do it responsibly, and we will be working with your city and the city engineering staff and your third-party engineers to make sure that it works. A lot of questions about noise out there. The most important component about noise is that we have read and understood and understand the City of DeSoto code. You guys have a sophisticated code regarding noise. And the ultimate answer is what that code says is that we can be about 55 decibels at the property line from our facility. And then beyond the property line, we have substantial additional distance to any of the other houses. Everybody, it's always hard when we're talking sound. The way I always describe it, what's 55 decibels? 55 decibels is about me talking like this. It's normal conversation level when I am not amplified by the mic out there. So at our property line, we will be 55 decibels at the property line. We will, through this process, as we get into site planning and working and coming specifically, and all of those site plans will be brought back to the city and the city council, we will also work through and look at noise mitigation in each of those components. We'll look at landscaping, we'll look at buffering, we'll look at berming, we'll look at how we house various parts of the facility to bring down those noise levels. You can operate a data center in a responsible manner, and that is absolutely the plan of this developer, and we know this council will enforce those codes as well. And finally, one of the concerns I heard was traffic. This is one of the great benefits of this development. When you look at the average amount of traffic between a data center and if this was built out as full industrial, our traffic will be substantially decreased in this. The amount of traffic that will flow from the development will be factors lower than what this would be with typical industrial development. And most of our traffic, we do not have the same level of truck traffic that you see when you have an industrial facility out there. So we think it'll actually be a real benefit to the area for those that have traffic concerns.
Okay. Thank you, Corb.
Yeah.
Questions from over here? So you covered, I wanted to make sure we covered the questions from the commenters. I don't know, Mike, did you want to comment on the availability of water in the
a little bit.
Water Assurance District?
Yes, I'd like to do that. We have been in kind of a pretty intensive discussion, verification between all the engineering talent that we have at our, both in-house and our consultants that have been working with us to do the expansion project that we're just doing. Everybody is in agreement that the water source will be the Kansas River. We are not going to be drilling wells on the site. We're not going to be drilling wells anywhere other than directly adjacent to the Kansas River. That water source it's the same source we get our water from now. The water treatment capacity expansion will take place on the site of our existing water treatment facility now, which is in the middle of the Astor Enterprise Park. And to the point of resource availability, just for a general overall order of magnitude understanding. By virtue of us drawing water out of the Kansas River and using it for a municipal purpose, we are required to be a member of the Kansas River Water Assurance District. The Assurance District owns storage in upstream reservoirs, Tuttle, Perry, Clinton, and Milford, that can be used to supplement and augment the flow of the river in times of drought or seasonal variations. DeSoto's a member of that. Our water rights right now are about 2.5 to 3 million gallons a day. We're going to be expanding those to roughly 6 or 8 million gallons a day really soon. The Water Assurance District currently, as it sits now, has about 185 million gallons a day of unallocated water resources available for sale for DeSoto or Lawrence or anybody along there's nobody beating a path to their door right now. But that's the order of magnitude of resources, and that doesn't count the regular stream flow that wouldn't be under the Assurance District. So in terms of the understanding as we know it now, we're in agreement. The water source is the Kansas River. I don't want to minimize the involvement of Rural Water District 7. They are the water service provider at the site. This will be a cooperative effort with them to make sure that the water gets delivered. But we're in agreement that the source will be DeSoto. We will be expanding treatment capacity. The river will be the source, and that's the general magnitude of available resources there.
Okay, thank you. Ron, did it look like you have a question?
I was just curious, when you were talking about the buffering, what would be some examples of buffering?
Yeah, it's a great question. There are all kinds of ways that you can end up bringing down the noise, that you can end up looking at various sound attenuation of building walls or covering up various components of it and where the generators may be or the cooling systems may be. Also great things that end up creating sort of noise attenuation and buffering. Plants, landscaping, berming, all of those things are things that eat sound out there. And then sound is also eaten just by distance. As distance travels, there's a scientific principle, the inverse square law, that if I'm talking at that 55 decibels right here, at 6 feet, it goes down 6 decibels. And then as every time you double it, you go to 12 feet, it goes down another 6 decibels. And then you go to 24 feet and so on and so forth, that sound keeps dropping as you have distance. So what we do is we look at and bring it into site planning as we're looking at those buffer areas. We're looking at how do you house various components of it? How do you end up putting in landscaping, berming? All of those types of things are that what will go into the site plan when we bring those forward. And we're laser focused on that around both your code and just as responsible developers to make sure that we're looking at all of those issues. The other good component about it is that we'll have practice, because where we're going on phase 1, if you saw from the site plan that we put up, phase 1 is going to be buffered by both our industrial building on our east side, and then it has Sunflower or Astra Park to the sort of south. So it's kind of our most remote area there that we'll be able to start there before we move to our northern portions, and all of us will continue to get better as we look at noise and sound attenuation through this. We'll always meet the code. We're always going to do a great job, but it'll be a work in progress that we'll keep improving this site plan to make sure that there's protections for the community.
I've got another question. This could go a whole different direction. One of the concerns I've heard was the fact that this is a company called Sunflower that was created in 2024.
Yep.
And so the ability of the company to complete the job, do the job. Tonight we're hearing Beal Infrastructure. Can you speak to the longevity and capability of the history of being able to do these type of jobs from the company that's before us?
Absolutely. So very common, council member, as that we go and do searches on sites and put sites under contract and work through development agreements, that we use a SPE, a special purpose entity. But the special purpose entity that was created recently, the company behind it is Beal Infrastructure. Beal Infrastructure is a very well capitalized developer of these types of sites that will be working through this. And also important to know is that ultimately there is an end user that is involved in these, and those end users are always very common names that everybody in this room would know and everybody across the country would know. And those companies are the strongest, most financially profitable companies in the world out there. And so you have both a well-capitalized developer on the front side, and then you ultimately have a very well-capitalized tenant. And that's what makes sure that these can be well-financed, there's adequate capital that can come into them, and we can live up to all the commitments we made to this city and we're making to the public as we move through this process.
I might also comment, you recall recently in our economic development policy, it's probably been a couple years ago, but part of the process is that Jeff White confidentially does his inquiry to the viability of the company, and that was done here, and we got a positive response by Jeff, so just wanted to note that.
Okay.
I have some comments, and some people have other questions.
I have no question.
Okay.
Mine was about, and I don't know that it was really touched on there as far as, somebody even had mentioned training for employees, but more so even around outreach and education along the phases for the community, and whether it be meetings, and that somebody's involved from each area of that, whether it be, from your organization, from Evergy, from water, I mean, to make sure that there's a good understanding and that there's opportunities for questions during that period, but the whole, I guess, the training and the education during outreach.
Yeah, excellent question, Councilwoman. First, as we've highlighted tonight, these truly take so many different professionals of so many different skill sets and so many different areas to bring forward both the development side of this and then ultimately the construction side. And really, tonight is but a first step. It is an incredibly important step. It's what allows us to move forward, but this is only step one. As we've outlined, we will be back for specific IRB issuances in front of this council. We need to come back for site planning in front of this council and your planning commission. We'll be coming back for permits. In all of that, we will be very communicative to this council and working through all of those items. And so there will be lots of places for engagement with you all as representatives of the public and the public in this process. And then as we move into the construction phase, all of our contractor will ultimately have to gear up substantially. There will be a lot of tradesmen that need to work on this. And so one of the great things is, given the long sort of components that you can have of continued building and investment, people can go and start as an apprentice on these projects and can finish out and get all of their apprenticeship finished over the years of continuing to work. So we can train and skill whole levels of construction trades just on these, one project that's right here in folks' city and in Johnson County. So it's an incredible benefit. And then you get ultimately to that operation side. It's what I sort of said from the beginning. These are good, solid jobs, really well paying in our county, in our community. But there's also, not all of these are 4-year degrees, right? And there's a lot of them that are 2 years degrees, and there's a lot of them that are certificates. And then we have not just the employees that are employed by the company, we have all kinds of vendors and contractors that help and assist. And they end up hiring new folks and training them up and skilling them up. So it really does create sort of a virtuous cycle in these buildings, in these data centers, of both from a construction side, how you're skilling up folks, and from an operation side of as you're skilling up folks.
I might also comment, part of the development agreement requires that the company be involved in the community and make a contribution to the EDC. So,
and we very much view. Yeah.
Easier for me to say, because we will be the one committing it. But our full intent is to engage with the community. Now that this is going through its approval process, it sort of opens up the gates for us to communicate, hold town halls, workforce development programs. So we will plan to engage with local tech schools, the grade schools here, community colleges, to start setting up workforce programs. That will be sort of early stages now, and then really beef up as we go into the operations and with the ultimate tenant and the end user. But from, where do we go from here is really opening up the door to the community. And we've been working with the city on information to provide on the city's website. I think you guys have done an excellent job with Panasonic. So we've been working in the background to supply that information to the public. So a lot of what is available today will be available on the city website. And then following this and getting into site planning and then ultimately construction, there'll be a bunch of community events to follow. And we'll be excited to join the chamber.
Thank you.
I'll start my first comment with actually kind of a question leading into comment. So we're being asked to approve the intent to issue the IRBs up to $50 billion, but that is not an amount that necessarily is being asked for tonight. The phase 1, phase 2 build out with the servers as it stands, with the sales tax and property tax abatement would roughly be how much of the 50 billion?
We'll meet for sure the minimum of 700 million out there, and we've said that it'll definitely be 3.1 billion over 10 years. But I think that we can confidently say we will surpass that 700 million when we come forward for that ultimate approval.
That includes the sales tax exemption.
Yes.
So if the sales tax exemption ends up falling under the state, the amount of IRB that will be going through would end up being about what, roughly?
It will be substantially less. I think here's a good number
That's
that.
a large portion of it.
Yeah, that I've used often, Councilman, is you have somewhere between 25 to 35% hard costs out there, and then 65 to 70% on the other side is that sort of server side of the equation.
Generically, it could be about 35% of what's being asked.
That's right.
So as far as what we're being asked tonight, the worst case scenario is it's up to 50 billion. The reality is it's probably closer to the 12, 15 maybe. But if the sales tax exemption falls to the state, then really what we're considering tonight is the intent for even less, which would have to be approved by future councils as they come before us.
That's exactly right.
So to break it down where it's not necessarily you're doing 50 billion, but it's the pieces, and with the state legislation that's there, it could be substantially less than actually what's being put before us.
That's exactly right, Councilman.
So that was kind of where I was going with the comment, but getting the numbers to put it into something people can grasp.
Yep.
On that. The other comment I have is actually a comment that's based on discussions I've had the past week with a resident from not our city, but a resident that lives on the edge of our city. And that resident, I've talked with them about noise, so we've heard a lot about noise. You're right, Corb, as far as the city code actually limits it at about 55 to 60. So when I've read things that have come up in the last week where people are going, well, it's 90 decibels, our code restricts it to be far less. But the people that I've talked to actually have no issue with the noise whatsoever. Not only that, the traffic, they are super favorable towards this project because the traffic would be less. And when I say less, I'll tell you where they live in just a second. But the traffic would be less. The building usage on the property would be less. So for these residents of the county that live on our city's edge, this project is a ray of daylight to them. Their address is 10175 Edgerton Road. It's Jake and Melissa Noel, who Flint Residential is looking at potentially putting apartments next to them, but they live at the epicenter of exactly what's getting ready to happen. And their concerns are actually about the noise and things like that are mitigated extremely because the noise isn't an issue to them. Trucks going in and out of a 7 million to 8 million square foot complex of warehouses would be substantially louder than a data center, substantially more traffic, substantially more employees that would be impacting their lives directly since they live across from the warehouse. So I did want to put in there that they are actually in favor of this because the impact to them is far less than what is proposed at Flint currently. So that's the other main comment that I had. The other thing is on the IRBs, unlike Panasonic, unlike a lot of the others, it's a 10-year IRB. So it's not a 20-year, 25-year incentive. We're at a 10-year incentive before it's fully on the tax rolls. So those are my comments.
All right.
Anything on this side of the table?
Yeah, I'd like to thank the citizens for coming forward with questions that were very good and well meant. And I feel very good about your program. I think it's a win-win situation. I have felt that from your openness that we've talked to you before, and city staff has really helped with the questions that we had, and I think that everybody worked together and came to a good conclusion that I feel comfortable with.
Okay.
And that's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you, Danny. I'll just close with a couple comments. Similar to Rob, I saw this as a win because much less intense use on that piece of property than what was originally planned. So the traffic, the number of employees, the trucks, all that going away with the warehousing not being used there is going to be a positive to what we're seeing. You know, it's a good complement to what we have going on at Panasonic. We have the jobs, the employees, and that synergy there. And then I think this is a great complementary use where we have the value, but we don't have the impact of the additional traffic. So I just see it as a great win for the community, for something like this that brings high value, a great revenue source for the community, can be very meaningful in our revenue pictures as we go forward. And we look at being able to provide some real property tax relief as we look at some dates out there in the future. So I think with that, if there's no more comment from the council, I think our first action then is to
Authorize the development agreement.
yeah, authorize approve the development agreement. If we're ready for that motion.
I'll make a motion, we approve the development agreement with Mount Sunflower Properties LLC.
Second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Lane.
Yes.
Daniels.
Yes.
Patterson.
Yes.
McMorran.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right.
I'll make a motion, we approve resolution 2073 stating the city's intent to grant tax abatement in this project.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion of the motion? Roll call, please.
McMorran.
Yes.
Patterson.
Yes.
Daniels.
Yes.
Lane.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right. Thank you all. Then our next item is somewhat related to this site. Because we've taken this action, then we need to amend the agreement that we had with Flint regarding the previous development agreement. Is that correct?
Yes. Flint did do all the public improvements they were required to under the original development agreement. Really, the only thing left that we needed to still keep intact is we have warranty bonds on the sewer line and the road improvement. So the amended agreement that you have before you, make sure that stays in place. But otherwise, it essentially just closes out the portion of the property that now will be the site of the data center. So recommend authorizing this agreement with its PBP Logistics LLC,
For you to say.
an entity formed by Flint.
All right, any questions for Patrick?
I do have one question. The goal of the council over the years has been complete streets. Complete streets being bike lanes, sidewalks, activity on that side. Edgerton Road at this point has a sidewalk along one side, it does not have on the other side. Was that part of the requirement of the road, was to have that be a complete street with sidewalks on both sides? Or an activity trail on one side and a sidewalk on the other?
No, the development agreement was specific about the sidewalk on one side. On Flint's side, the assumption would be that as development occurs on the east side, that those developers would put that in.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions? Motion?
I'll make a motion, we authorize the amended and restated development agreement with PBP Logistics LLC related to the Flint Commerce Center.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion of the motion? Roll call, please.
Daniels.
Yes.
Lane.
Yes.
Patterson.
Yes.
McMorrin.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, thank you. Item C, receive presentation from Geiger for Evening Star Road Benefit District.
Yes, council, as Dave makes his way to the podium.
Oh, wait a moment, Mayor, if you
Sure.
let them clear. I promise this will be a riveting conversation if you want to stay. Hey, Cole, Mayor, members of council. Cor.
Maybe I should have just declared a.
Right. Ah, this'll.
Cleared the room.
I thought I showered. Yeah, I know. Nobody wants to hear this anymore.
It's your stand-up routine, Dave, right? All right.
Yeah, just quickly, Mayor, familiar face here at the podium, we know, representing Geiger Concrete. There's another familiar face or two in the back row there. When they came in initially with the incentives that were granted already for the site, they did not include anything related to the construction of Evening Star Road. As you might remember, the special use permit requires that they improve that road from 103rd Street south about a half mile to their site entrance, and they've designed that now. They're in the process of implementing those improvements. But here tonight is an initial presentation for initial incentives related to that. The first one is the formation of a benefit district that would fund those improvements. The only member of the benefit district would be the Geiger property. We're not talking about including anybody else. And then the other one would be application of the excise tax that they've already paid to that project. Excise tax about $88,500. So with that, as you know, with our incentives policy, the first thing that happens is just a discussion between the council and the applicant, and then based on that discussion, we'll proceed with formal action at a later date.
Thank you very much, Mike.
There we are.
Dave Anderson, 9152 Shorewood Drive here in DeSoto. As Mike said, Geiger bought the property from myself and a partner, and we've offered to help them through this process. Schlegel engineers are designing it for them. We will pay for the entire road. We're asking that you would approve a special benefit district, which means there is another landowner that I will be bringing to the table that wants to build a travel center on that actual corner. Geiger's just south of the actual corner of 103rd and Evening Star. We need three things, actually. One, Patrick would draft for your consideration an annexation of a little strip of KU that's on the east side of the road. Long story, but at any rate, it's really a very small strip. They have agreed to do that. The Regents Board will meet, I'll get my dates wrong. When's your last September meetings? 18th? So their meeting is on the 17th. So I'd like to ask that we come the 18th with an annexation prepared for you to annex that little strip. Then we can build the road entirely on city property, or our property and your property. We would then give you the right-of-way, so the whole road would end up being the city's at our cost. But we would use the special benefit district bond, if you're familiar with that. It's formed, a bond is made. We have the bonds sold already. Well, they're not sold because they're not here, but we have someone that will buy the bonds, a bank. And then the landowners are assessed the cost. We're going to do 20 years. So it's all financed through in a 20-year deal, and it is paid through taxes. and then the bonds are paid. So the city has no financial obligation. They're not on the hook for anything, but we do need the city to issue the bond. So the right-of-way annexation and the bond, and then we'd like to ask for using 100% of our excise tax. Geiger has already paid that tax. I talked to Mike and the staff and Brandon, so the accounting wouldn't get kind of messed up. It's sort of over here waiting for your decision. And if you would allow us to do that, then when before the bonds are issued, we'd use the tax that we paid to pay down that bond, which we're paying for anyway. Does that make sense? I
Yeah,
think?
it's actually in an account collecting interest, but we won't.
Okay. In addition to that, he's already had, the travel center is going to come, I have a site plan and an application for an incentive on that coming shortly, and we'd like him to be included because he's the only other landowner. His property is like 5 acres. I think the Geiger property is 12, 15? 15. So it'd probably be 40-some thousand, just based upon that. So I would ask that Musa would be able to put his excise tax into the road as well. So if you have some questions, I thought I'd make a comment. I'm not asking for anything other than moving a couple 100,000 versus 50 billion.
This is pocket dust.
I know. I don't even know why I'm here. Yeah, if you guys have any questions, what I'd like you to talk over or whatever is shake your head yes, and also ask Patrick to prepare an annexation agreement that you'd approve, bringing that land into the city. Again, it's just a sliver. I don't even know how wide it is, Matt. How wide? 60 feet for the length of the road.
Mayor, can I just
Sure.
make one comment? Just particularly for the newer council members, so the excise tax, it is pledged for transportation needs throughout the city, but it's a tax. So we really, and we do mention excise tax as being a possible economic incentive that the city can waive portions or all of the excise tax. But it's not, we really can't talk about it in terms of, well, you're building the road, so you shouldn't have to pay excise tax. We've been consistent with that we can waive it, but it really, since it's a tax that you have to pay on building permit or platting, you're just waiving that tax, sort of irrespective of the road.
Yeah. But as I understand, the tax has already been paid. So
Yeah, we
we're not
intend to
asking-
pay the excise
we're
tax
just- we're
and
just
then
re-
ask you to divert it to pay down the
Direct
bond.
it, not divert, direct it
Oh, sorry.
toward this important transportation improvement that will help to develop the Astra. I mean, this is an important street. It's one of the key streets in Astra.
Yeah.
It's like we've got, we had KDOT and Panasonic build the 1 mile or half a mile in. I don't see how this would be any different. This is just another link into the Astra, and actually this is kind of that beginning of that fat line that connects K10 to I-35 along that
That's
new
right.
transportation corridor. So I think it makes a lot of sense that we would use transportation funding that's paid by this developer to fund the transportation improvement right here that we've identified as part of that Astra development.
Some of the geometry too, just in the previous discussion in bringing energy, there's a giant transmission line that's on our property, and that was not going to be moved. I mean, we in a normal circumstance, we might have moved it over and not have to talk to KU, but so we're kind of getting along with the neighbors that you just talked about. They're just our neighbor to the northwest or northeast. But yeah, we had to align the road a little bit different, go to KU and get some ground. But those are just the three things. And any comments you guys would like to have or share with us or tell us we're going the wrong way?
Oh, I think that, I mean, the benefit district, it's no cost to us. It's how you would wish to pay for that.
Right.
Finance that road construction, right? So.
Correct.
I think it's a legitimate, part of other incentive proposals we've had before us recently, so I think that seems like a reasonable ask, and I've shared my opinion regarding the use of the excise tax. Any other thoughts from any other council? And so this would be something that we would work with the developer if at the direction of council to
Yeah,
craft an amendment to the current development agreement, or?
Possibly, or a new one. Yeah, we'll go to the Economic Development Committee. We'll talk that over with that committee.
So, unless I hear a veto from anybody, I would suggest that we probably continue in that process.
Thank you, guys.
Very good.
Terrific job, by the way, earlier.
Thank you. Mike?
Yes,
Talk
Mayor?
about budget.
Yeah, let's talk about budget. So, I don't have
So are you going to
an
start off with that
extraordinary
we are
amount.
not raising taxes
We
by
are
106%?
not raising taxes by
Is that the first
106%. Some media outlets got that wrong. I think it's very
No one in
important
the
to
room.
correct that. No one in the room, no. Present company excluded.
Yeah.
Yes, council, there is as predicted, mass confusion about the revenue neutral rate and how the Panasonic assessed valuations and TIF collections impact our extraordinary artificially low revenue neutral rate. As you remember, we have calculated our own revenue neutral rate, which would essentially hold harmless the average residential property owner in the city, essentially rolling back the mill rate by the same percentage that the average residential property increased in value in the last year. That's kind of the legislative intent of the revenue neutral rate is that you pay your property tax in dollars, not mills. Don't pat yourself on the back just because you're keeping the mill levy the same. If your property value increases, your tax is going to. We can say that the average homeowner in DeSoto will pay the same city tax, property tax, in 26 as you pay in 25, all else being equal. So that was one of the bullet point. I didn't intend to. I don't have a big presentation tonight. What I provided you was kind of the first, about third of what will be the budget document that we'll implement and throughout the 2026 calendar year. It has narratives and explanations and policy directives and all sorts of supporting information there. Also, 5-year projections. I provided that in the packet. Really, the only changes that we have, I've kind of tried to summarize here in the staff report. Based on the last discussions, we've implemented those recommended budget enhancements that we talked about a month ago. We've added $40,000 to the consulting budget in the general fund administration with the intent of securing a lobbyist, potentially a state lobbyist for that. We've also increased the general fund personnel budget so we can hire the city clerk position at the beginning of the year rather than mid-year. We already talked about the mill rate. The capital improvements plan, we are still compiling the results of citizen surveys, and we'll have some more specific recommendations for you at the first meeting in September about that. For now, there's lots of placeholders in the document. But this essentially, this chart kind of shows the resulting 5-year projections in the general fund. We still see a gap between the fund balance at the end of the 5-year projection and what we've stated is our fiscal policy, 30%. So there's still about $800,000 shown here of excess funding to still allocate if we desire to do that. The budget calendar I've shown here in the exhibit. We are on track to hold the budget hearing on September 18th. That will be our budget hearing and budget adoption. That'll allow us to get the state budget forms to the county clerk by the due date of October 1st. So I don't really have anything else to add. Happy to have further discussion on this, but if we're tired, we can readdress there at the next council meeting. Thank you.
Questions? Comments? All right. I think everybody's a little worn out.
Yeah, kind of sensed that. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, thank you, Mike. All right. No executive session tonight, so we'll go on. Mike, anything for us under advisory reports?
Nothing this evening, Mayor.
Thank you. Patrick?
Nothing for me.
All right. City planner, oh, Brad's gone. All right. City engineer, Joe?
Not just two comments, we took this today for this year's middle roadway program and for the Wheatley Trail, there south of 95th Street. Had really good competition, really good bids.
For what? It's hard to hear you.
Rob couldn't hear you. The street, I think it was the overlay program.
Yeah, the overlay program and then Waverly Trail. And so we had we had 4 bids on the overlay. Prices were good. Actually, we're going to go back and look at, see what streets we can add because we have some excess funds. And then the Waverly Trail came in. We had 9 bidders, very competitive bidding.
Was
And,
that open this afternoon that today? I thought I saw like a lot of expectant folks hanging around the lobby.
Yeah. Yeah. So a lot of bidders, which is
All right.
kind of a change to what we've had in the past.
Good, yeah, that's exciting. Thank you. Any questions for Joe? All right. Brandon, anything from the Assistant City Administrator tonight?
I just wanted to make you guys aware on September 3rd, which is the day before our next city council meeting, the Johnson County Parks and Rec District is coming into the park board meeting to discuss the Riverfest master plan. That was a request from the board. So the purpose of it is to give an overview of kind of where they're at in the master plan and then just kind of give a general service update for the park district because we had some turnover. So if you'd like to give that update, it's at 6:30 on September 3rd in this room. So
Okay.
with that, Mayor, that's all I got.
Thank you. All right, council comments. Danny, you want to start us tonight?
Just one thing, I wanted to thank, the street department, they did a wonderful job of getting the things mowed down there along Cedar Creek, even with all this weird rain and the flooding and, everything, and I thank them for that, and also the, long, pinner, the, church signs and everything, they did a wonderful job there, and that helped the people that were coming in from Whiteman Air Force Base to find the facility. So thank you very much, and very good for the city.
All right. Thank you, Danny. Victoria, anything tonight?
Yes.
Okay.
It's a little ways out, but just want to make it known. The October 16th meeting, I will not be here.
Okay. Rob?
Nothing tonight.
All right. Rhonda?
Nothing.
All right. So I have one bit of news to share. We are the official owners of the Scout House. They closed on that this week, so we'll have some discussion at some point in the future about what to do with that property. But right now, we've declared it as storage. So Jay has been looking for places to put items, so I imagine that's where a few things will end up. But I think one thing we have to get looked at, if we're going to keep it, is a roof. It's going to need a roof sooner than later. That's the joys of ownership. But, that's all I have.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All right. We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? We are adjourned.